So I'm going to give a critique of one of my Barcelona pictures now. Now, when I say a critique, I'm going to evaluate it, but I'm not going to talk about all the things that I've got wrong, because I don't do that. Not with mine, not with anybody's. It's more like just recapping on what I've done and, more importantly, why I've tried to do what I do. So this is La Sagrada Familia, which was drawn and painted on location with Urban Sketch Course. And initially, it's all about composition. It's how you fit things on the page. Now, with this one in particular, it's going from the very top right the way down to the bottom, because that is the space that you've got. You're stuck with that amount of space. So initially, it's maximising that space, and I feel I've managed to do that because I've gone right to the very top with the top of the tower and the crane coming down all the way down to the trunk of the tree. So it's going from there to there. Now you've got a lot more space on this side, so this doesn't really matter. You can leave white gaps either side. So it's that initial structure, that composition, and how you're using the parameters of the page. The colouring, I've used a limited range of colour, and I've tried to toggle between warm and cold. So I've got a variety of different blues on the go here. I've got ultramarine blue, and I've got cerulean blue, and I've got cobalt turquoise light. So you've got the cools, which are then playing with the warms, like the burnt sienna and the transparent orange. But I'm not using the warms and the colds to push back and jump forward, because that would be too obvious. I'm doing it in a much more ambiguous, playful kind of way. So it's making you think, it's making me think. It's that kind of, why is that happening like that? Why does that jump forward? Why does that push back? So it's been done in a very kind of playful way. So the two of them complement each other. For example, if you look at the towers there, that's an ultramarine, that's a burnt sienna and ultramarine, that's a burnt sienna by itself with a bit of orange, and that's a cerulean blue. Now in reality, they're all sitting on the same plane, they're all the same distance away, but by just playing around with the colours and the temperature of the colours, it just makes it a lot more visually interesting. But then also that cerulean blue links in with the cerulean blue in other parts of the picture. That transparent orange links in with transparent orange in other parts of the picture, as does the ultramarine. So then you are using the colour to then bind certain elements together, to link things together. If we think about the storytelling elements as well, and this is something that you learn when you're on location, and it's the story of what you see, you become very mindful in a sketch like this that the building isn't finished. You know, it's still under construction. So you look at the top and you see the crane, and we saw a little gentleman, I think it was a gentleman, it could have been a lady, sorry, a person, walking up, and they were tiny because it's so high. And they're walking up to the top, and then a few minutes later the crane starts swinging round, so it's still active, it's moving at the moment because they're still building this tower here. So that becomes a really big, important part of the sketch, the fact that, you know, it's under construction. So I wasn't sure whether to put the crane in at first, because it would have just had the 4 towers, but I thought the crane tells the story. The crane is really telling the story, as are the trees, because it's in a park. So the trees are helping to structure it down at the bottom, giving it some kind of context as well, because without the trees, it would then just be an illustration of the building. And then it's, how do you do the trees? You know, do you do the trees so they look super realistic and, you know, draw the individual leaves and, you know, really take the trunk of the tree and you know, make it look solid? Or do you do it in a way in which it's more compatible with everything else that's going on in the picture? So it links the picture together, but it gives it a grounding at the bottom. So what I've tried to do is come up with a way of describing the trees and all the techniques that I'm using so that they fit in with the towers and the main body of the church as well. So the whole thing becomes integrated. And when you look at some of the little Gaudi stylizations that are going on here, it's almost the same technique that I'm applying to the leaves on this tree over here and down here, and some of the hatching techniques that are going on, which populate all around the picture. So on the body of the church here, that hatching technique is applied into the trees as well. So all the time it's using all sorts of different ways of recording, but populating it around different parts of the sketch so things become linked together. So that's my critique, that's my looking back on my sketch, thinking about it, thinking about why I've done certain things, how I'm trying to kind of build the thing up in lots and lots of layers of colour and tone and texture. But the most important thing is the memory of doing it. You remember the place, you remember the things that happened while you were there on location. And that's why I do it. I do it for all of those memories, because they're just so powerful and that they stay with you forever. So that's why I think urban sketching and drawing and making art on location is so important.